And good evening. I'm going to wait a few minutes here for everybody to join. Since we're joining again this evening, if everybody maybe wants to tell me where you're watching from below, and if you're at the retreat or planning by the post-retreat access, please let us know in the comments. Today I have somebody else very special here. This is Peter Escue. He is very involved with Call to Peace Ministries, and I wanted to introduce him too, that he is also a church partner liaison. So if you're not aware what that is that means that he works with our church partners, a partnership program, and helps advocate for women that find themselves in domestic abuse with helping them advocate with talk to their pastors about what they're going through. Is that correct? Yes.
Yeah, that's correct. So we, as women go through these situations and they start, bringing to their churches, a lot of pastors don't have the training to understand what's going on. And so that's where we can step in and try to help them from a church leader perspective. How do you deal with this without, having to go through all the training, right? And then how do you understand the dynamics and then proceed with church business?
So we are very grateful for him. So we have 5 church partner liaisons, and he is one of those 5, and he is located in Texas. Yep. So if you're in Texas, this would be a good person to connect with if you find yourself in domestic abuse and you're wanting to talk to your pastor about what you're going through to help him understand and possibly partner with Call to Peace as you walk through this. His wife and him also are marriage counselors in their church, and they work a lot with women who are in domestic abuse. And his wife is Jackie.
Yes. So. Yeah, we do a lot of, we used to do a lot of marriage counseling, and then we were running these hard issues. And so we're like, what's going on? So we got trained with domestic abuse. And so we do see a lot of that. There's a lot more than you would expect, even within, the church communities.
Yes, I was talking to your wife last night as I get the privilege of getting to be a roommate with her. And I was like, is it really 1 out of 3 in your church? And she's like, absolutely.
It is.
Yes. She's like, it really is, if not more. And she was explaining about that. And so it was just like, wow, it's really heartbreaking. And so she's a really amazing person too. I've enjoyed getting to know her and connect with her this weekend. And so we're very grateful for y'all both, that y'all are advocates and advocating for women. But that is not all that we're going to talk about tonight. So Peter is also in the software business, software technology. And so he had a session today about ways that women can be harassed, stalked, and abused via technology. And it is a little bit frightening and scary from what I understand, but this is really good information to have. So I was like, let's do an interview here and talk about this. But I also want to disclose that he mentioned we need to be very careful that we're not talking about it and giving too much details, because we don't want this to get in the hands of abusers that could use this wrongly. So we're going to talk about this here tonight. But if you want further information and you think that, oh my goodness, maybe I am being stalked via my technology and I'm being abused via technology, then you can access his session today via post-retreat access. You can also, if you have post-retreat access, also access his slides that he had today and get more information. So we're going to share a limited information compared to the session today, just to protect your safety. So I am very curious myself and learning, how are women harassed and stalked via technology?
So unfortunately, there's a lot of ways. And the most common way is your phone, right? You can be tracked with your phone.
Wow.
There are easy ways, right? There's like Find My iPhone, which every iPhone has. But then there's apps out there. Not necessarily apps you would install on your phone, but there's third-party services you go to, and they can help a perpetrator basically clone her phone and see in real time everything that's going on with her phone.
Wow.
These apps proclaim to actually try to help you know what's going on with your kid's phone, right? Or find your cheating spouse, see what's going on. But unfortunately, they're then used by perpetrators, abusive husbands, to abuse their wives and track them in those ways. And that involves not just reading your emails or your texts, but also looking at your internet history, looking at where you've gone, tracking your phone. And it can even go down to some of the programs can actually turn on the microphone of your phone, even if you're not on a call.
Wow.
And they could listen remotely to, like, your phone sitting on the table right now. They could turn that on and then listen to us. It takes a little bit of skill for that high level, but some of these apps are brain dead easy. You pay your $30 and give them the number you want to track, and then you're compromised. Assuming you do certain things,
and
right?
anybody can get a hold of these.
Anybody.
Wow.
Now they do have to have your participation a little bit. So it's called social engineering.
Okay.
And a lot of these apps will end up texting you saying something innocuous like, can you help us fill out this survey? And so you click the link, and you go to this website that then downloads malware to your phone.
Do not fill out surveys, ladies.
Don't click on any links that you are not expecting. If you don't know what it is, if it doesn't sound right, don't click on it because you're curious.
Okay.
Right. And that's not just for your, potential abusive husband. That's like all hackers. That's how they're getting onto your system, and they're going to ransomware your system, or they're going to steal your data or something like that.
Wow.
So it's called a watering hole attack.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like a lion waits by the watering hole and waits for the zebra to come.
Yeah.
And he pounces, right? Waits for you to come to this website, and then it pounces on you and downloads malware. So that's one way, and that's one of the most common ways. If your abuser knows your Apple ID and your password, that's another way, because there are some programs that can actually use that information to go into iCloud, where your backups are, and they take your backups down, and then they look at your backups. So they haven't even touched your phone.
Wow.
But they look at your backups of your phone, right? And so then they have all of your data. And so that's another way. Another way just to using technology to track you is you go to Amazon and search for GPS trackers for cars, and you'll come up with over 500 hits. And they're little black plastic boxes, weatherproof, with magnets on them, and they can take them and they can go under your car and just attach them to the frame, and they will track where the car is. I was working with one advocate, and her client had gone, trying to escape her husband, had gone to a friend's house that she hadn't been to for a couple years. And they learned later that her husband showed up in the neighborhood, knocking on doors with her picture, right? So he had tracked her enough to know where her general location, and then was trying to find her by knocking on doors.
Wow.
Say, have you seen this woman?
What a psycho.
So those are some of the common ways for tracking. There's also harassment, which this is where I want to start being careful what I say, right? Because I don't want to give ideas.
Right, yes.
But there's a lot of ways to harass women to cause them even more problems, particularly once you're separating, right? And he's starting to lose control, and he wants to he's mad, he wants to abuse you further, or he wants to control you. There's a lot of internet services and apps that he can engage to start causing you a lot of problems, distract you legally, throw up roadblocks that aren't really fair, but using technology to do that.
Wow, and they can learn more about that in your session.
They can.
Yes.
So I wish I could say it now.
No, we want to protect these women and not give any perpetrators that are watching this any ideas.
That's right.
But there's a lot more ways that were mentioned today in the session, apparently. Wow, that's all so crazy and scary, too, at the same time, like knowing what, people are capable of. So what can a woman do to protect herself?
So the first thing I recommend, and this is not always possible, but the first thing I say is get a new phone with a new number on a new plan.
So as soon as you separate, or before you separate, or how would you do that?
Anytime you feel safe to do it.
Okay.
So if you're not separated, but see if you can get a new phone on your own plan, with a new number that he doesn't know, right?
So you would do a new number too.
Because remember that texting of the link that I just told you about? If he doesn't have your number, he can't text you the link. Okay.
Oh, okay.
And so what you'd want to do is get a new number that's assigned to the phone, and then go get a Google Voice number. Okay. Google Voice it's a free number. You go to Google, you can sign up, and you can then give him that number, because it's not attached to your phone anymore. Right.
Right.
And then he calls that number. It will come to your phone because you got the Google Voice app on your phone. but it's not your phone, and so you can take it off your phone at any time, or you've only given him that number, so if anybody uses it, it's coming from him, so to speak, and
Yes.
you don't have to mess with anything else, and don't give him that other number.
That's incredible. That's a great idea. I use Google Voice at one point just on my iPad, just to have it. But yeah, that's a great idea.
So get a new phone if you can. Now, if you are in the situation, that can be dangerous, right? Because then he's thinking, oh, she's on to me. And, so as soon as you feel safe, though, do that.
Yes.
That's number one. Number two, almost number one, is change your Apple ID password.
Okay.
Because if he doesn't have that, then he can't get those backups. Okay. But if you are on the same Apple account, if he knows your Apple ID, then you're in big trouble. He can continue the tracking and the harassment and things like that. And so you want to change that. You want to change all your passwords. Sometimes you even want to get a new email account. Okay.
Yes.
There's a couple great free encrypted email services out there. Proton Mail.
Okay.
Proton Mail is a good one. And you can send secret or password protected emails where you send it and the person at the other end has to have that password to even open up the email. Okay. You can also send it where it times out after like 4 hours or 6 hours or 12 hours. So if, depending on your situation, depending on how worried you are and how unsafe you feel, you can put a time limit on there, wow. and that person can't open it without that password. Okay. Also, a similar one is called Tutanota, Tutanota, something like that. They're very good also. And they both have free plans. It doesn't have the ecosystem that Gmail has, which some people are very heavily invested in the ecosystem. So, Gmail's still good. Just make sure you use a complex password that he's not going to guess. And don't use the same password on everything, right? So your Apple ID password needs to be different than your Gmail password, needs to be different than your bank password, needs to be different than any, use unique passwords. So those three things, I think, new phone, change your Apple ID password, then change every other password. Those are the top three. And then one pro tip is don't trust any device that you've got that he's ever had access to. If he has ever had access, you can't. He could have put what's called a keylogger on there. So everything you type on there is recorded. Okay. So let's say you type an email or a text and you send it, and then you delete that text. Well, he got those keystrokes already. It doesn't matter that you deleted it. He's already got the keystrokes. Wow. So all your passwords that you type in, he's got those.
So do not trust any, I want to give you my computer, or here's a free gift, or you can keep the computer. No, do not. Just get all new.
Yeah, just, use a friend's. I worked with a guy, he sent his sister was in an abusive relationship, sent his sister a phone, but actually sent it to her advocate. And the advocate kept it at her house.
Wow.
As a safe device.
Yes.
That when she went to that house, that she could make phone calls and look things up. But her own device was not trustworthy. So.
Wow. So women also that find themselves in domestically abusive relationships who are staying in it should be very careful with what they're doing on their computer, because sadly, as we know, working with lawyers, there's things like that can be used against you in court.
Absolutely.
Like if you're typing into a private support group and they have access to your computer and you're typing stuff about them or texting it, that can be used against you. So
I've never done a formal survey, but of my wife's clients that I've helped with, about 100% of them have been monitored electronically in different ways, right? Some guys are not all that bright and they just try to log in, guess the password, and it sends her a note that somebody logged in, right? Or tried to. But then some guys have hired private investigators.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I've heard of that.
And these private investigators try to clone your phone. They try to add an Apple Watch to your account so they can replicate your data. I think one private investigator I was adversarially working against actually probably paid a phone store employee to add a new phone to her account so he could clone her data. Just kind of like in the movies, here's $50 once you do this for me. So your devices are not safe. And I will say this, security is all about the details. If something is out of place, if you get a weird message, if you see a light that shouldn't be on, or that's what you have to pay attention to for security reasons. Okay. That's where you're going to catch these guys.
Right.
All right. Is in the details, right? There's not going to be a blaring spyware app, icon. It's going to be the small things that you have to pay attention to.
Wow. Okay. I'm like, wow, this is like working with women. So if you're an advocate, you need to be listening to this. So working with women in domestic abuse, but wow, that's a lot to take in. Okay. So what would you say to a woman in domestic abuse? Like, say she's needing to watch stuff on Call to Peace. She's needing to research. What should she do if possibly her husband is stalking her? Like, how can she protect herself?
I would say go to a library and use a library, the systems they have there, or a friend's house. I would recommend you try to use your existing devices for your normal communications, right?
Yes.
To call the school, to call your kids,
right.
Send your normal emails. Anything having to do with investigating lawyers, new financial situations, investigating Call to Peace, go to a library, go to a safe device. Again, you cannot trust anything that he's had access to.
So maybe if she got a device secretly, she could use that?
Yes, absolutely. You can go, like Walmart sells burner phones, right? I mean, they're not smartphones. Well, some of them are. They're not as smart, but,
half smart.
get one of those that's like a pay-as-you-go type phone or something like that, and that would be a safe device. Just make sure he doesn't know about it, and make sure you put a screen lock on it. I think like face recognition is very handy.
Yes.
But it can be very dangerous.
Oh.
Because all he has to do when you're asleep is take your phone to your face, and it's unlocked, and now he's got it, and you're asleep. Okay.
Yeah.
Same thing with thumb recognition, right? So on this burner phone, this new device, don't enable any of that stuff. Okay. Make sure it's a password that only you know, that he's not going to guess.
Yes.
So.
Wow.
And don't connect it to your home Wi-Fi. Okay. Because he can look on the router, and he can look at all the devices that are connected. He's like, what's this new one? Right. And if he's really smart, and you have to be super, super smart, but he could track where you go on that phone. Okay. He can't really track your data that's flowing, but he could say, oh, you went to www.legalzoom.com or www.calltopeace.org. He can see that information if you're connected to Wi-Fi in the house.
So maybe using like 5G, if you have something else, would be the better way, so you cannot access that. But that is, wow, that is very concerning. Okay, wow.
And that's a tip I didn't give in the class. See, so we got
yes. Okay, that is really good to know. And I'm sitting here thinking about these girls probably listening to this too. How do you protect yourself from being tracked by your car?
That one's a hard one, right? Okay. So this one case I told you about where he showed up in the neighborhood, she had found, I think, 5 different trackers on her car over the preceding weeks. And if you think, so your biggest tip off is, does he know things he shouldn't know? Okay. And if he knows you went somewhere he shouldn't have known, right? Take it to a mechanic you trust, that's not his best friend. And just ask them, just say, hey, I'll pay you $10, $20. Would you put it on the rack, lift it up, and look for a tracker? Okay. Because it's going to be a box, 6 to 8 inches long, plastic. It's going to be magnetized, stuck to the frame. Remember LoJack? You ever heard of LoJack?
No.
LoJack, usually sold by dealers, right? It's a secret GPS tracker somewhere on the car. Okay. And you pay a lot of money for it. And the idea is, if your car got stolen, they could initiate and find your car. Okay. These trackers are the same way, but the guy is typically just going to stick it on the frame. They're going to reach under there, stick it on there. And so it's not going to be hard to find, right? For a mechanic who knows what he's looking at, he's going to look at, oh, what's this thing, right? It's a tracker.
Right. And I would say for a woman, probably, I don't know, going by your experience, what you think or what you say, if a woman's planning on leaving anytime soon, sometimes men kind of get the hunch of that and kind of start sensing that, and that's probably more likely when they will put a tracker on. Or would you say no, or is there a certain time?
Well, it depends. I mean, you're going to know if in the normal course of life, if he's like locking you down, if he's checking your odometer, if he's putting apps, if you know he's tracking you and he's not shy about it, that's one thing. But you're right. Once he starts to feel like he's losing control, he may start doing that.
Yes, they're tracking. And I know for a lot of men, it's so crazy. Is a lot of men, when you're in abuse, the most common thing they think is their wife's cheating on them, which they're not, but that's just their excuse. So they start going crazy, tracking them. And so a lot of times if you start hearing them talk about things that seem odd, that they're like thinking that you're cheating, so they could be on your phone and like wanting to stalk everything you're doing to see if maybe there's somebody else because you're withdrawing. So they assume that you're talking to somebody else or tracking your phone or you're hearing any of those ideas. That's when I would start. I know what your thoughts are, but I would start researching too. If they're constantly saying, where were you? Were you cheating? Were you here? Were you there? And they want to know all about your whereabouts. They use that as an excuse to kind of track you. But if I'm hearing any of that type of stuff for a moment, I would definitely say go start tracking. Not start tracking, but go start checking to make sure you're not being tracked via your car and via your phone, and maybe get a new phone, because when men start escalating in their belief that something's going wrong, and then you start seeing more and more escalation of trying to control you and figure out where you are, that's when they're going to start doing more drastic measures to control you.
And one thing about the phone, like if you think that your phone's being tracked, like if you've already clicked on that link that came in for a survey, and like, oh man, what you can do when you get that burner phone is when you go out to meet your advocate, okay, leave your phone at home, forward the number to that burner phone, right? So if calls come in, they will be on your burner phone, but when the phone he's tracking is still at home. So you're able to move, throughout wherever you're going, and he's not tracking you, assuming he's not anything on the car, know. But that leaves your phone at home, but you still get the calls. So if he's at work and he's tracking you, making sure you're at home, he thinks you're at home, but really you're off meeting your advocate.
Wow. Now that's a smart idea to outsmart him.
There you go.
Leave it there and go out and meet your advocate. But yes, we want make sure you're very protected and very safe. And I'm seeing a message here. If this is a comment, I'm trying to see if I can see it. There's a comment here in the comment. If y'all have any questions, feel free to ask anything. Okay. And is there any other advice you'd like to give to women about this?
What I would say is it's very difficult when you're in an abusive relationship to really believe that he is really abusing you, right? That he is really self-centered and he doesn't care about you like he thought. And it's another step to believe that he's going to track you and he's going to do all these things. And trust me, he's going to, right? You're not paranoid. Your family may think you are. I talked to several women today about their churches, thinking, oh, you're just paranoid. He's a nice guy. He probably is tracking you.
Yeah.
And so let me just encourage you, if you have a hunch that there's something going on, reach out to an advocate, reach out to someone trusted that can help you with this. Because it is pretty common. In my experience, it's pretty common in some form or fashion that he is trying to figure out what you're doing, because that's that control, right? Talk about the abuse as coercive control. He wants to control the narrative. He wants to control you. What are you doing? Who are you talking to? He wants to know all those things. And when he can't, he gets very upset. So it is pretty common. So just, I would say, you're not paranoid. He really is tracking you.
Wow.
So.
Wow. But there's hope too, that you can take control over this and learn how to protect yourself. Not all is gone. So I don't want women to hear this and be like freaking out that maybe you've said something or done something and be like, oh no, if it's okay. There's a certain extent where we can say, okay, God, I'm going to trust you in this, and let's start over and let's go get a track phone and let's get a new device and just be careful going forward. Is there anything that you would like to say to women that may be feeling fearful right now about this, of what they can do to protect themselves?
Well, one, I would say, security is very hard. So I don't want anybody to feel like I'm condemning you, right? That you've made the wrong steps, or, you shouldn't have done this. I in my job, I work for a software company. I'm a sales engineer. I focus on cybersecurity. I work with large corporations and governments, and they can't do it.
Right. Yeah.
It's very hard, right? So don't beat yourself up. you're not in a worse position now than you were 20 minutes ago before you learned all these things. So don't panic. Just start being more careful, right? Watch out for those little signs. Change your passwords if you feel safe to do so, and reach out for help.
Yes.
We're happy to. Well, I guess I'm the only one. I'm happy to help you. I have a 8 to 5 job, or longer than that, but my bandwidth is limited, but I am happy to help. And I do help ladies, and I help their advocates try to figure this out, because this is really, really hard things. I will say, if you buy the conference access, or if you get conference access, I also have 3 documents that I've put together that document a lot of this and a little bit more.
Okay.
So you can have something written down to go by that might help you. It's got some suggestions for advocates specifically as you meet with clients, and then it's got some suggestions for other types of helps.
Awesome. So, that's great. Yes, and if you're hearing about the post-retreat access for the first time, that will be available after the retreat. And we want to tell you that we do have scholarships available. So I don't want you to hear this and be turned off and be like, I can't afford post-retreat access. At Call to Peace, we never want to turn anyone away due to cost. So we have scholarships available for us. You can just email us at info@calltopeace.org about if you need a scholarship for the post-retreat access, and just tell us why, and we're happy to help you with that. But we would love for everybody to be able to access his session and every other session that's been here today. So, and if you have any questions, I'm going to link an email in the comments below. It's going to go to our church partners at calltopeace.org, and you can put in the subject line Peter Escue, so that our church partners know to forward it to him if you have any specific questions for him regarding technology. But we are very grateful for you and your time this evening and sharing about this, because it's a scary time. Thank you so much for putting that in, Kathy. You're amazing. This is definitely as technology is advancing, we need to be more and more smarter and wiser in this stuff to learn how to do this. And ultimately, I just the thing that's impressing my heart is that God's in control, and he is wiser and greater than any of this stuff. So as women that love the Lord, you have the Holy Spirit within you. And so I would just trust his promptings. If you feel something is off, or you feel that somebody is maybe possibly tracking you, listen to it, follow it, and apply these things that he's saying. And so just don't be afraid to step out in faith and follow what you feel you need to do for yourself to keep yourself safe. And God will definitely, he always promises to be with us through this and walk with us and guide us. So I just want to give you that encouragement today as well. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I thank you for tuning in. I thank you for the opportunity to work with you.
Yes, thank you. Yes, and if you have any questions about church partnership as well, or find yourself in Texas, you can also contact him via churchpartners@calltopeace.org. If you're in Texas and you would like a church partner to be able to advocate for you with your church. So thank you so much for tuning in this evening. If you have any questions, you can leave them below, and I can try to help contact him or answer them if we can tonight. So thank you so much. Y'all have a good night.
Good night.